a very interesting topic to discuss today, and it's something that Rob and I have been talking about a lot recently. There is a lot of very specific technique only or style or type of fish only competitions held these days. So is that limiting us? Are we going fishing with one arm tied behind our back? Are we stopping ourselves from catching the most from our peg? Or are we becoming better anglers as a result of focusing on these specific tactics? I mean, Rob, let's just break that down a little bit more. Obviously, there's been an introduction of an extra World Championships now. Let's talk a little bit about how these matches affect
we've got
it.
the Freestyle World Championships now, haven't we? Which is
Freestyle feeder.
Freestyle feeder. So, to break that down, feeder fishing with 20 centimetre or below hook length, so short hook lengths, method feeder style, flatbed feeder style, pellet feeder style fishing.
Methods and pellets, isn't it,
Methods
mainly?
and pellets, yeah, to sort of jump on the commercial fishery sort of like bandwagon, I guess, and to get a lot of more people interested in that style of fishing. And to has it had an effect on feeder fishing in general, or feeder fishing? I'm not too sure, because when you look at our matches, we fish feeder only matches, which are generally in the UK any style of feeder fishing.
Yeah.
But when we go abroad, it is 50 centimetre hook lengths, running feeders. There's a lot of rules in place for those matches. Then you can come to somewhere like here, Lindome, bomb and feeder matches. You can't fish a float, you can't fish a pole. Then if you go on certain rivers, certain other venues, there's float only matches.
Yeah.
Then if you go on some commercial venues during the colder months, there's silverfish only matches. Yeah. So I tell you what we're doing, Lee, we are fishing with one arm tied behind the back for sure. Is that a bad thing? I'm not too sure. I think on some days I've turned up on matches with just a feeder rod in my hand because that's the only thing allowed, and I wish that I was allowed to fish a pole or a float, because I know I'd catch more fish. But take today, for instance, at Lindome, and we've had this conversation before. When we're on our feeder only matches, there's been very few days where we've turned up and we've not been able to fish. But on a pole match or a float match, or on those days where you know that pole is going to dominate, when you get that awful wind that affects 90% of the people on the match, and you know that there's a chap in the corner fishing 60 metres of pole, catching an F1 every cast, and no one else can do that on the lake because of conditions.
I mean, look, it's a real tough one, because I'm all about catching as many fish as possible. Somebody once said to me, shouldn't there be any method World Championships, right, where you can fish with any technique, any tactics, limitless bait, you know, like, it's all out there. Unfortunately, personally for me, I always think that having rules in place, give something a little bit more credence, give it a little bit more importance, because, you know, fishing, say, the Float World Championships, which was the original World Championships, you know, limits had to become in place because people were taking excessive amounts of bait. And what it does is it hones your skills. So the best example I can give, Rob, is I always considered myself an all-rounder, right? I always considered myself, that's what I wanted to do. I loved going and doing all types of fishing, and I used to love going to my peg, sitting down and going, right, is it feeder? Do I need a bomb rod? Do I need a waggler rod, float rod, whatever it might be, to get the best from my peg? And I like to go on the river, I like to go on the canal, etc. But when I started going feeder fishing, when I first got into the feeder team, Tommy Pickering was the manager, and he said to me, look, you need to go feeder only matches to improve your feeder fishing. And I thought, yeah, he's right, but I didn't really understand why until I fished one. And I suddenly realised that when I was in, let's take a peg where we sat today, and you chuck your feeder out, and after 2 hours, you've got 3 fish on feeder, you can't wait to pick your pole up, and you pick your pole up and you come in the edge and you catch a load of fish to finish your day. That doesn't improve your feeder skills. When you sit down and you've got 5 hours to get the best out of your peg with an allocated method, you become a better feeder angler. And what happened was, when I then went back to fishing, let's say for Barnsley Blacks on the Division 1 National,
where feeder fishing was an important part of it.
It played an hour and a half, 2 hours of it. I was really good at it because I'd honed my feeder skills. Let's talk about commercial silverfish matches. I love fishing like that in the winter. Then when it came into spring and it was any method, but in the middle of the match I needed an hour and a half roaching, I realised, or skimmering.
Yeah, you've learned how to do that a lot better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I personally think it's great to have specific disciplines. My concern is how that divides match fishing and how it basically gives everybody a chance to do something, but I still want to remember that we're all one big match fishing body.
It's definitely divided match fishing because I just don't see the same people that I used to see when I was fishing any method matches. Just don't see them anymore. I also feel that sometimes anglers that, when I do occasionally see them, and you see them at an open match and they'll sort of say, well, what have you been up to? And you say, well, I've been feeder fishing. I've been fishing high profile feeder matches all throughout the year. They sort of haven't got a clue that we've even been on those matches. So they're definitely interested in their own sort of style of fishing, and there has definitely been that divide in place. I'm not so sure that. I think it's great. It's helped. It's definitely we've both benefited from it with our feeder fishing massively.
Yeah.
So it's helped anglers. It's helped individual anglers hone their skills, like we say. Is it nice to have that option to pick up your pole and catch a load in the margin late on after fishing a feeder?
Without doubt.
Without doubt.
But those matches are still there.
Those matches are still there.
I noticed that one of the recent discussions was because there's a method feeder championships, should there be method feeder only matches? I will say that there is a lot of feeder only matches in the UK. I can't really think of many only feeder matches to our World Champ rules. Take Feeder Masters. The Baitech Feeder Masters is probably the most popular feeder only event in the UK, it's fair to say. And it's any method of feeder fishing, isn't it? You know, we fished pellet feeders in the final this year. We fished method feeders in the final
I'm
this
not
year.
too sure that there is enough anglers and enough venues to cater for that specific method feeder style.
Yeah, to divide it down.
To divide it down, because I think you'd be taking anglers from the feeder fishing, the traditional feeder fishing. Some of them would want to fish it, and then you're splitting those anglers up. I'm not too sure there's enough anglers for a World Championships. I think it's great.
I agree.
My issue is with it, and this is where you guys need to get involved, because this is something for you guys to comment below with your opinions. Is where do you stop? So
where do you draw the line?
Where do you draw the line? So now we've got the Freestyle World Championships, we've got the Float World Championships, we've got Feeder World Championships. Is there going to be a Waggler only World Championship?
Well, this is exactly
Short pole World Championships. Where do we draw the line?
I must admit, float fishing hasn't divided itself in the same way, and that's, you know, in the UK, I think it's important. Well, listen, all over Europe, I think it's important that we give people the opportunity to do their specific tactics and to hone their skills in that way. I think we've illustrated that. It has made us better feeder anglers. Float only matches made me a better float angler. I always considered myself strong at that type of fishing when it was what I focused on. But there's got to be a line in the sand, but I expect that comes from demand, doesn't it? Do you understand what I mean?
It does. I'll tell you what I'm going to relate it to. Let's take fishing, match fishing as a discipline, and let's relate that to cue sports, as in snooker, pool, billiards.
Yeah, good example.
Because obviously all these other styles, snooker exists quite happily with pool. They're both cue sports, and no doubt that if someone who's fantastic at snooker decided to spend 6 months playing pool, they'd be fantastic at pool.
No doubt.
American pool. You know, let's relate it to that sort of thing. There's all these different disciplines.
Yeah, you're very right.
But is billiards still a thing? I don't think it is. I don't think people are going out of the way to play billiards. And almost like the popularity of these different disciplines have sort of sorted themselves out. So when I talk about where does it stop, will there ever be a Waggler World Championships? Waggler fishing isn't the most popular tactic anymore, is it? So
no,
I don't think there's a need for one.
It's interesting what you say, because I like a bit of golf. Cricket's a good example as well, but golf has longest drive competition. Has that made some of the golfers learn how to drive a ball longer off the tee?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
One day cricket has shown test cricketers how to be more aggressive. So personally, I'm loving that match fishing has expanded its mind and given us these chances to do the same. One thing I don't want to do is I don't want there to be any division, because
we shouldn't be rubbishing what other people want to do.
No, because some people come up to me and you and they will say things like, oh, do you know how to fish a pole anymore? And I always chuckle to myself, because you've been feeder fishing for a little while. A good angler doing any sort of discipline is going to be a good angler. Some people can excel at certain types of methods. Some people are good at all methods. I think, just like I like to embrace carp fishing, fly fishing, sea fishing, I think it's important within match fishing now that we embrace all the disciplines and learn from each other to become better anglers, because that's ultimately what's going to help us all move on and help us
be
better at what we're doing.
If you were a new angler, a young angler or a new angler, and you're getting into match fishing, would you go down like, I'm going to go down one single discipline, or would you say I'm just going to be a match angler in general and then narrow myself down? Would you say, tell you what, I'm going to go just feeder fishing?
I think that's an brilliant question. I think my advice would be, if you love fishing and if you love the fishing the type that you do, is try and experience it all. And then if you are specific to, like, if you thought, oh, I love my feeder fishing, I've got to work full time, I haven't got the time to commit, brilliant, you can now be a brilliant feeder angler. And there are some brilliant feeder anglers that never really went commercial fishing, never really went pole fishing. That's great, especially in a lot of these countries, in European countries. Some people, they don't even touch the other.
They've probably never owned a pole.
And that's probably more because of time and commitment in your life. But I would say, if you just love your fishing and you want to go on a feeder only match one week, that's great. And if you want to go commercial fishing the next, or go on the river the next, you can do. It's got to be about enjoyment. I would say, if you want to reach the top, don't ever be scared to have a little go at specific only matches, because it will make you a better angler at that type of thing. I still like going and fishing. I fish the commercial national here every year, Rob, for Dren and Barnsley Blacks at Lindome Lakes, and I spend like 5-6 weeks coming here, and that makes me a better commercial angler without a doubt. And I think having those skills helps. So I would say to anyone out there who's maybe a little bit rusty at a type of fishing, spend a little bit of time doing it. Or if you're looking to get into fishing, or get into match fishing, make sure your mind is open to every part of fishing.
It's great that these little individual circuits have been created, hasn't it? So, you know, your silverfish only opens, that started as your natural venue angler looking for something to do in the winter.
That's how it started.
Because his natural venues, these canals and rivers, are a bit out of sorts, but with all these commercials that are rammed full of silvers, so brilliant, I can go and get my fishing fix in the winter. But I tell you what, it's changed now to anglers who are amazing at commercial fishery silverfish fishing, just in the same way that there's anglers that are amazing at commercial fishery F1 fishing or carp fishing, and they zone in on those sort of matches. So I think it's great that it's giving opportunities to all these anglers in different disciplines. I agree.
What we'd like you to do is, would love you to obviously subscribe to the channel. That's a no-brainer, you need to be doing that. So subscribe to the channel, it's free on YouTube. The free subscription gets you all these types of videos, so you can subscribe there. Don't forget as well, comment below, we'd love to know your thoughts. Do you prefer a certain type of fishing? What's your opinion on fishing being divided? Get them on there, get them there for people to see. We love reading them, we really love the engagement, and the more we do, the more we're going to discuss these sort of topics, aren't we?
Of course.